My man, how is it going today? How are you doing?
I'm just fantastic right now.
You're doing fantastic? Because I'm doing fantastic. It's kind of weird that we're both doing fantastic. It's like we're the same person.
It is weird. It's like we are the same person.
What'd you do today?
All I really did today was go for like a 6-mile run. Other than that, I kind of did nothing.
That's fun. You know what I did? I had psychology final. And I had to make a video about like talking to someone about psychology. But it's kind of weird because I had no one to talk to for it.
Psychology? I'll learn about psychology. Can you sit down and talk to me right now about it?
Oh, you want to know about psychology? Are you sure? Because you're going to be in for a ride. I will go forever about this. Psychology is awesome.
I'll learn about psychology, man.
Okay, take a seat here. Let's go. Okay, so what does psychology mean? Realistically, you can break psychology into the word psychology into two things: psych, which is mind and soul, and logia, which is to study. And what actually psychology means is not the study of the brain. Do not say the study of the brain, because the study of the brain is just not the right term for it. If you go to Mr. Ryder and talk to him about this, say the study of the brain, he'll be mad. But psychology is the scientific study of mental processes and human behaviors. And what is a behavior? Behavior is any action that people can be observed, like running, like big runner I am. Walking, boring, but you know what? It's still exercise. Drinking, and eating, etc. Cognitive activities is mental behavior. And it's things like thinking, like, oh, that cookie tastes so good. That's my thoughts right now. And dreaming. So like, man, I can't wait to dream about that cookie tonight. Like, And the goals of psychology are really describe, predict, explain, and control. Psychology can be seen in many places though, like at a police station. Many of the policemen need psychologists. They go through a lot. A school, therapists, or like we'll come into school sometimes, or your guidance counselors will be psychologists sometimes. And then a mental ward, you will see a lot of psychologists there. They're really trying to know what is going on. But psychology dates back a long while, really to Aristotle and Hippocrates. Well, Aristotle really called it parapsychs, and he established a universal law where people seek pleasure and avoid pain. Very long time ago.
Is a very long time ago. Jeez.
And he really got a lot of that from Hippocrates, who suggested that there could be a biological reason for behavior. And then we wait a little while, and my boy William Wundt developed subjectivism, which is subjective relates to personal viewpoints, experiences, or perspectives, whereas objective refers to factual data that is not influenced by personal beliefs or biases. And now my boy William James here, 1840 to 1910, dude. Fun fact, these guys were born 10 years apart, but died the exact same year in 1910. Both Wills, too.
Gotta love some Wills.
Functionalism, which is how mental processes help organisms adapt to their environment. And adaptive behaviors are learned because they are successful and become habits, which is just right. And then my boy Sigmund Freud. I love my boy Sigmund Freud, dude. Sigmund Freud was a little cuckoo, but it's fine. It's fine. When you're on psychology as much as he was, you're gonna get a little cuckoo. Psychoanalysis, he developed psychoanalysis, the importance of unconscious motives and internal conflicts in determining human behavior. He also developed the talking cure. So it's like anything you in a movie when like you see like, he's like laying down and there's a psychologist right here. He's like, when I was younger, my father beat me and I was forced to work at a Nike factory till I was 9. Like stuff like that. And then my boy John B. Watson comes around. He has behaviorism, which is the study of observable behavior. And then my boy B.F. Skinner has positive and negative reinforcement. So yeah, there's a lot of important guys there. Now we'll go next here. This is more of the chapter 2. How do psychologists research behaviors? So first they form a research question, then they form a hypothesis, then they test the hypothesis, then they analyze the results, and then they draw conclusions. A lot like the scientific method. Now, the way they choose are the survey method. People are asked to respond to a series of questions about a particular subject. And it can't always be accurate because sometimes people lie. And that's why sometimes the survey method isn't the best. But they usually target a population, which is the whole group you want to study or describe. And examples are like adolescents, like 14 to 18 year olds, high school athletes, like my big runner cross country man, myself, Andrew Thaler, or people who smoke once a day. Like,
whoa, man, don't blow your smoke on me.
like people like that, like those guys. And they used to have samples, like these random samples are individuals that are chosen at random, and that's kind of like they'll only they maybe do some women, they'll do some men, they'll do some Jewish people, they'll do some Catholic people, or they'll do it a stratified sample where they'll just do men, or they'll just do women, or they'll just do Catholic people, they'll just do Jewish people, stuff like that. And though you can't, with generalizing results, you can't really do that if you do a stratified sample. Random sample, you can kind of do it. And generalized results is if the sample is not representative of the population, you cannot generalize results. And it's like, here's a good example. Psychologists study men's preferences on cars. But then, you cannot generalize results to everyone because you didn't study on women's preferences to cars. So yeah, and another thing that can happen is a volunteer bias when you do these groups. People who volunteer for studies may bring a different outlook than someone who does not volunteer. And there's another thing that happens, which is the experimental method. And this is how they really do it. And there's many variables that will go into these methods. Like, now, what is an experiment? Well, an experimental group is the method of a study who receive the treatment, and a control group do not really receive the treatment. Now, experimental is usually there's a placebo effect in these. It's a substance or treatment that has no effect apart from a person's belief in the effect. Like example, like a sugar pill and like Dayquil. And then there's like sport rituals, like I don't know, finding a 4-leaf clover or something. Or every single time I wear a certain pair of socks. And they usually do kind of study, like a blind studies, like a single blind study, which is participants do not know whether they are in the experimental group or in the control group. But the researchers do know that who's in which. And one group receives the drugs and are told that it is not the drug. Second group receives the drug but are told it's the placebo. Third group receives the placebo and they are told it's the drug. Fourth group receives the placebo and are told it's the placebo. Then there's a double-blind study where both participants and researchers do not know whether they're in the experimental group and the control group. An organization that is not involved in the study keeps track of the groups though. And then the experimental method, which is researchers use these following techniques to analyze the data well. But okay, another thing that happens with psychology is you have to have ethics in psychology. And ethics is the standards for proper and responsible behavior. Standards are made to keep scientists from undertaking research that are harmful to human participants. Participants' info is kept private, so more true answers will be said. Informed consent does happen though, and they will be told what is going to happen, and they would have to give consent on whether you can do it or not. And deception will be used in this if it does outweigh the harm. The benefits do. And researchers must be objective when analyzing data. Okay, so we're more of the chapter 3 section here now, where we're going into what happens in the brain and spinal cord. So the central nervous system is the brain and spinal cord. Spinal cord is a column of nerves about as thick as a thumb that runs from the brain down to the back. It's like right here, and the brain's up here, if you didn't know. And it carries a message to specific muscles. There's not happens as a spinal reflex, it's just an automatic response to a trigger without input from the brain. The peripheral nervous system is a nerve cells that send messages throughout the body. And a somatic nervous system transmits sensory messages to that central nervous system and carries messages from the voluntary muscles and sense organs, which is a good example is a hot, cold, softness, pain, stuff like that. And that's one of the things that is in a peripheral nervous system. Another thing that's in a peripheral nervous system is the automatic nervous system, which regulates the body's vital functions like heartbeat, breathing, digestion from the cookie that I just ate and the water I drank, and blood pressure from all the blood that's pumping through my body. There's 2 divisions of the automatic nervous system, like how there's 2 divisions of the peripheral nervous system. Which is sympathetic, which is really your fight and flight response, or the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And Also, there's many neurons in your body. That's like it's kind of like a cell, which runs through your entire body, sending messages and communicating with each other. And that there's two types: sensory neurons, which carry information received from the senses to central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and motor neurons, which carry information from the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, to the muscles and glands to influence your functioning. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in your body that you have no idea about. Then there's neurotransmitters, which are chemicals that are stored in sacs in the axon terminals. And yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on. Now, all the parts of the brain. So there are many parts. I'll just read them off right now. I'm not going to explain them all, because if I explain them all, we'll be here forever. Which is the medulla, the pons, the cerebellum, the reticular activating system, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the limbic system, the cerebellum, cerebrocortex, corpus callosum. Wake up. We're still talking about psychology, man? We're still talking about psychology here, man. And there's also stuff like the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, the temporal lobe, the central cortex, motor cortex, Broca's area, and the Wernicke's area. There's so much stuff, man. Okay. There's also the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain composed of two hemispheres and connected by the corpus callosum. It also has 4 parts called lobes: occipital, frontal, temporal, and parietal. Okay, now we're going more to chapter 4, which is more senses. Now, what is a senses? Well, a sensation is the stimulus of sensory receptors and the transmission of sensory information to the central nervous system. And a simulation of our senses is automatic. And so, like, just any sentence, like, or taste, like a cookie, or hear, or see. Now, perception is the psychological process through which we interpret sensory stimulation and reflects our learning, expectations, and good attitudes. Now, there's a couple of thresholds when it comes to senses, which is there's the absolute threshold, which is the weakest amount of stimuli that can be sensed, and there's the difference threshold, which is the minimum amount of difference that can be detected between two stimuli. Like, the absolute threshold is like it's like so barely, like, if you're like looking, so barely visible that like you can't even just see it anymore. Or there's the difference threshold, which is like something that, like, two things that look exactly the same, but there's a one small difference that you can't tell. Okay, now let's go into like all the stuff that all of our senses here. There's like the eyes, where like it's kind of like, oh, there's so many processes that goes into the eyes, and it's just like anything you can see. Like there's like if I went into the eyes, I'd be here forever. Well, I'll go to hearing. Our ear processes vibration known as sound waves. Higher the frequency, higher the pitch. Lower the frequency, lower the pitch. And we can hear it from 20 to 20,000 cycles per second. And now you kind of want to know, how can we go deaf? Now, how can we go deaf? Well, there's conductive deafness, which is damage to the middle ear, which is kind of like the eardrum and stuff like that. Then there's sensorial deafness, which is damage to the inner ear, which is stuff like the trochlea or the vestibular nerve, stuff like that. Now let's go kind of into smell. Smell is orders are detected by receptive neurons in our nostrils. So it's like, oh, I smell this cookie, and it kind of goes swoop. And olfactory nerve, which sends information from the odors to your brain. Also, you can go noseblind very easy. Trust me, I have gone noseblind in the past. Now, there's many things like taste, which is and there's 4 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. Plus umami. Umami is like very of like a bitter like feeling. And taste cells completely renew themselves in 1 week. Now there's more skin senses, which is sensory receptors that are like located at all roots of our tiny hairs in all of our body. These receptors are activated by touch/pressure. This is more like a pressure. Like when you feel by pressure, it's you really touching those like small hairs. And then there's like skin temperature, which increases receptors for warmth and sends the message to the brain. Now, how does pain work? Well, pain is first the pain/injury occurs. Then the pain message is sent to the spinal cord, then the thalamus. Then it continues to the cerebral cortex when the person measures the severity of the pain. So yeah, that was a lot. But that is what the kind of the basic psychology is. All that stuff that I just told you, that's kind of like the basis of psychology. So yeah, psychology is very complicated and hoofed up. And that was a lot. Hoofed up. I think I need a break after that. That was just a lot, man. Have a good day. Have a good night, boys.